Hola a todos. Actually, it's kind of super busy. I'll have to find a quieter spot. Hang on one sec. See, now that's a little better. Welcome to Seville. In particular, La Plaza del Calido. I think I got that right. But it's a small little oasis in the middle of Seville. And it's this old school courtyard. Looks beautiful. And it's just off the main path, the main street in Seville, where all of the touristy things are. But it's a quiet little space that no one really comes down, not as much. And I thought I'd show you while I had the opportunity, even on a busy night. It's early on. It's just a little after 8. I just got off work and came on over here because today's actually been a really cool day. The first thing I did was, well, today's theme kind of is old with the new, right? And my fascination with, in particular, Europe and how they manage with all of this old stuff, but still maintaining all of, modernity and new stuff, for lack of a better word, right? So oftentimes things are really old and they crumble and they either get rebuilt or maybe they get replaced or maybe they get built on top of. Typically in Europe, most of these cathedrals, for example, they might have been built originally in the, 9th or 10th century. But of course, they didn't look anything like what they do now, but they got built on top of and built on top of and built on top of that. Today, I had kind of a fun idea to go find a couple of the really, really old places, and in particular, the walls. Seville was surrounded by walls. It was a fortress town, like many towns, and in particular, they had a wall that went around the city, and they had chains that would go across the river so that they could keep out invaders or monitor traffic up and down the river. It's how they maintained a certain level of monopoly when it comes to that. And those chains, the locations of those chains would eventually be replaced with pontoon bridges, sometimes temporary, sometimes a little bit more permanent. And then eventually, usually in the 1900s, they got turned into real, like solid bridges. But who would have expected at that point that they would have to build these bridges so that cars could drive over and trucks could drive over, or even trains, for example. But some of them do, right? There's a bike lane on the Ponte Triana, right? Like how would city planners have expected to deal with that back in 1800s, 1900s, or even earlier than that for some of the older bridges. But I did find the walls, and it's really cool because sometimes it just seems like these old things just get left there, and I wonder often about like how often they just kind of go unnoticed by the locals. And it was interesting too, because even today I walked past a group of what were obviously like a classroom of kids, like maybe 8, 9, something like that. And they were being taught the history and shown the old walls and that. And man, I wish I knew a little bit better Spanish so that I could hang out and learn from them. But man, would that have been cool as a kid to learn that kind of history and walk around in the area that it happened, right? So I'm going to show you a spot that I found today that I was able to go through. So check that out. It's the merging of the old and new. Outside is the Seville main road up along the river. There's condos around me. The big touristy spot is down there. And this is basically a parking garage with condos up top. But if you come with me down the path, you'll visit Seville's old stone wall that surrounded the place and guarded it. A little bit of it, a small fragment, remains along with the watchtower. And of course, the main watchtower is down there. And so yeah, this is what it looks like at night. The tower is just there for aesthetics. The condos and restaurants over there. And the condos and office buildings up there. And of course there's the wall that goes along there. And in particular, like, speaking of like new and old, you can see the Christmas lights along the palm trees, and that's a restaurant. You can go in and sit down and eat right beside the right beside the tower there. Gotta get better at this backwards pointing. Wasn't that cool? Like, just so cool, right? The parking garage, and sure, yeah, there's an old wall there. Like, why not? So fun. And the other thing I did today, which was actually the first thing I did today, was to check out the old archives of the Indias, Archivo de Indios. I probably butchered that, but it's basically a big building, a really beautiful old building, and used to store documents from, you know, the Columbian Exchange, basically. For a long time, it all happened out of Seville. I've covered that in other videos, so every little every ship that showed up, every a product that came through, every contract to do more is in that building, or was at some point. Now it's all just, you know, kind of boxes to represent the documents that was there. But what is really, really cool is not only do they do this thing where they show you a document of the month, so you could just go in there and every month see a new old document. This month it's a couple of maps, which is really, really cool. One of South America and how they thought it looked at the time. The other one was the Guadalquivir River. Butchered that, no, assuredly. But they also have copies of the old treaties. One in particular that was really, really cool was the Treaty of Tordesillas. Now, the significance of that was back in the 1490s, they had Spain and Portugal were the two main exploration fleets. But their technology was so far advanced from all the other nations that, and they could be so bold as to divide the planet. They sat down and decided, on this side, Spanish, on that side, Portuguese. And the line that they would change it, but it was 700 leagues away from Cape Verde, which is in kind of the east middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And so basically that line went down the planet from pole to pole, and everything on what would be the west of that was Spanish, everything on the east was Portuguese, which gave the Portuguese this nice little slice in South America, which is why Brazil is Portuguese, and a bunch of places in Africa, India, Indonesia, and of course it gave Spain the rights to North America, which is kind of cool. They had to change the line a little later, and then they also went, oh right, the other side. So they divided the line there, and if you're, you know, checking out maps, you'll also notice it didn't quite work out or last very long either. I'm thinking about the Philippines at that point, right? Anyway, it was cool to see. It was cool to see like that piece of history. So yeah, really wanted to do that. And the cool thing is, it's free. You just walk in there. I mean, you got to go through security, but it's free. It's absolutely free. It's a gorgeous little building. There's all this kind of cool history to it. You get to see the documents, or great facsimiles of the documents, and it's completely free. And what's up with that? You know? And so after that, I had some time and decided to swing down, like I said, to the walls and the watchtowers. And so I figured I'd go see the big watchtower, the most famous watchtower, which is the Torre del Oro. Spanish has got to get better. It's really got to work on it. Torre del Oro, which is the Golden Tower, or the Tower of Gold. And it's the main watchtower that watched for enemies. It watched for incoming ships. It was the landmark that as these galleons would come up the river, they would see and know they were back home, right? Now, I've been told by the internet that it's not worth going up. You know, it doesn't really go very, very high up. If you want to be the highest point in the city, like, you're better off going up the tower in the cathedral, right? And I heard all this like negative, or I read all this negative stuff about the tour, but here's the thing. It's $1.50 or €1.50. So it doesn't cost all that much. It is a little cramped, so I would imagine if you're going in the summer, in the peak season, maybe it's a little hard to navigate. But they have a whole nautical museum right in the middle of it, and then you climb to the top and you get to see the city, and the views are pretty good. Like, nothing worth complaining about. Like, if they would have charged me like 15, 20, 100 euros, yeah, maybe I'd be like, yeah, this isn't worth it. Maybe skipped it. But no, it's €1.50. And I don't know, you could probably spend a couple hours there if you really wanted to, but realistically, you're there in an hour. I think it's totally worth it. Totally do it. Absolutely do it. So this is the Golden Tower. This is where they would have been looking out and watching for the ships to return, or possibly the enemy invading. But it's a nice little view, and you can really see the city all along the river. You know? So that was my day today. The new and the old. And checking out what these cities do with their old stuff, including this courtyard, which is why I came here in the first place, is because this is a very old courtyard that eventually the condos and buildings and tourist sites all grew around from, but they kept the original courtyard and they kept the original walls, or close to original walls. So even right here, this is an oasis. It's an escape from the big crowds over there. Oftentimes, you'll see a nice peaceful setting with the sounds of the fountain back here, giving you a little bit of a respite away from the crowded, screaming tourists just down the hallway. And it's a gorgeous little hallway to come down anyway. So with that, I will say I'm doing great. I hope everyone else is doing great at home. I heard it warmed up, so that's great. Happy for you guys. I hope it stays that way. It's supposed to be warm, but maybe a little rainy here. So we'll see what kind of activities I can get myself into in the next little while I'm spending my last week in Seville. And hopefully I get to do a nice little trip on the weekend to some other town and check out what their old stuff looks like. So you'll have to hear about it tomorrow. So please subscribe. Please like, comment. I'd love to hear what you guys think, where you've been, the old stuff that that you've seen, and I just love reading them. I go to bed, I wake up, I read the comments. It's fantastic. I love it. So please keep doing that. I really, really appreciate it. So with that, I will say hasta mañana. I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Good night.